Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to my guest. Today we have Kelly DuMar with us from Sherborne, and Kelly is a poet and a workshop facilitator. We're also going to talk about her work as a playwright as well. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much for having me, Jan. This is a real pleasure.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Now, when did you start getting into poetry and that type of thing? When you were a kid, or when were you?
I did write poems as a child, and I wrote, I think my first poems as an adolescent. But, I think poetry, it comes naturally, but for us to write it, but reading it can be scary and intimidating. And as much as I enjoyed writing it, I focused on fiction, and as an undergraduate in my writing career, I was like, poetry, it was mystifying to me. So to sort of discover my passion for reading and writing it later on has been a kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
I don't think people need to be at all intimidated by poetry. That's what I figured out.
So when you made it through high school, it really hadn't surfaced a lot yet, that ability?
Well, it had surfaced as a passion, but I channeled it into fiction and nonfiction.
She's written some good books here. We're going to talk about that. And then you went to UMass in Amherst. What did you major in?
English.
Of course, English, yeah. I think you said something else after that, too, that you majored in or went into?
Well, I went to graduate school through the Graduate School of Education at Harvard and focused on counseling. After being an undergraduate, knowing I wanted to be a writer, I was an editor on the newspaper, and I wrote like crazy as an undergraduate, but I also felt a passion to be a helper, to be a counselor, to be a therapist. Yeah. And that was a big crossroads. It's like, do I go on and get something like an MFA, Master of Fine Arts, and really pursue the writing? Or do I go get a degree in counseling and go down that route? And I was really torn. And I chose counseling at that time. And had a therapeutic private practice for many years before I decided to close that, had an opportunity to close it, and focus on my writing.
That's amazing. It's like, I understand that thing where you've got, sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 different ways I could go. And people say, oh, isn't that wonderful? I'm like, no, it feels like a curse. Because you don't know what is going to really be the strongest. Until maybe later.
Well, I think I see writing as such a deeply profound and therapeutic, transformative thing that they haven't ended up being separate for me. I think the way we encounter our deepest selves, deepest truths, and help ourselves the most, and help each other the most, is often through writing. And sometimes that writing is strictly therapeutic, and sometimes it's beautifully crafted and publishable. And I think there's tremendous value for all of that.
I imagine with your working as a counselor, as a therapist, you must have been very helpful in that way. Did you suggest journaling and that thing to people?
Yes. Yes, I did. Definitely always integrated writing into my private practice and did do writing workshops. Then I still do writing workshops, and I coach writers on their writing. And it's always a mixed bag of what's the stuff in our hearts and minds. That's what we're writing about. And writing is often a process of how we're creatively solving. But in my training as a psychotherapist, I got into psychodrama. Psychodrama is a method of working with your spontaneously through drama in a group setting often, and using drama to solve your wishes, your goals, your dreams, your problems. And so in my training as a psychodramatist, it reconnected me with my passion for theater, and then opened the door to my playwriting, which I did for a good solid decade or so. Now I teach playwriting for the International Women's Writing Guild, for the Transformative Language Arts Network, and in my own practice. but I haven't been writing plays because I'm really writing poetry full time.
We're going to talk about her poetry right now. Now, your most recent one. What? Let's see. Jinx and Heavenly Calling. What does that say? Jinx and Heavenly Calling. Did you do the cover?
Well, I had the idea for the cover. I didn't actually choose that script. My cover designer actually chose the script for which she wrote Jinx and Heavenly Calling, but it is a collection of epistolary erasure poems. So what I did was I found a collection of my mother's letters. They were given to me by my brother, who found them in his basement some years ago after she had died. They were all my mother's love, and all my mother's love letters to my father. She was a records librarian at a hospital in Athol, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. He was at the Harvard Business School, a student, and all the letters she wrote him from September 1953 to approximately June 1954, when they got married, were in this. They're all handwritten letters. And from that collection, I produced what might be called erasure poems. I extracted words from the letters and put them and set them on the background of some graphic element of her original letter, and created that whole collection of poems.
I love this. Well, I came from a family of sales reps. Besides actors, my father was in radio broadcasting. Mom they met at Emerson. She was going to go into acting.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, yeah, in English class. Yeah. And she told, I guess my father told the other guys, I'm going to ask Florence out. And they said, good luck, she won't go out with you. He said, why? Oh, she says her mother won't let her. Mom was zeroed in on a career. Dad says, you watch. Yeah. He got her to go out with him, and then he married her. But she loved acting.
These are our origin stories, right, Jen? You know, how they began.
Exactly.
Is why we're in the world.
I like this. Good salesman. Here I am again to stay. Now that looks like her writing. Is that her writing? Try 2 a day. I go fast. You should have the finished product by summer. Only kidding. 3 weeks. I can pep you up. Fluorescent. So you took her writing and you interpreted it into a poem.
Yes.
I had never met a poet who did that. That is awesome.
Every one of the words on that page that I used for the poem are in that particular letter. It might be a multi-page letter. I took some from maybe each page. And only from that particular letter. So there's an organic quality to the way they were constructed. So, and her context is not my context. Yeah. This is what I brought to. I know how the relationship turned out. They stayed married for 50 years. They got married, and then they stayed married for over 50 years. So, to me, this was a story. She was a records librarian at a hospital, and actually what she was talking about in that original letter was, I think, sort of a 1950s form of amphetamine, like over-the-counter. Like, I think she was trying to get him, try these vitamins. They'll help him stay up at night to write his business school papers.
Really?
I don't think he ever actually really probably did it, but that's what the reference is to the letter. So I only chose her words, and I only took them in the order in which they appeared on the page. When you're doing erasure, there's certain sort of rules you set up for yourself to follow that that help you really push back against whatever it is and create the thing. And then each of them is on a graphic. So I think what you're talking about on that one, it was her handwriting. Yeah. So that would have been a graphic element from her letter.
Now, is that a picture of her? It says, sneak a better anywhere. I don't think you can see it, but that's it. Was that your mom?
Yeah.
Oh, your parents must have been very young when they passed. Very.
Well, they were in their 80s.
By today, that's kind of young.
Yeah, it is.
And back then, it would have been even younger, right?
Yeah,
and you were in the middle of 4 children?
5.
5. Oh, your parents must have been so busy.
They were really, really busy. And so the interesting thing is that one of the things in the letter, in the collection of letters that I discover, is this premarital pregnancy, which is detailed in the letters. And it's not there explicitly, but it's there implicitly. It's sort of implied in here. So this is one of the things I discovered. So they got married, and she was pregnant when she got married, but she lost that. She had a miscarriage after they married.
Her first baby.
Yeah.
But then she was okay after that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the 5 of us after that.
All girls, boys?
I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters. I'm what I like to call a double middle. I am the middle of 3 girls and the middle of the 5. So I have boy, girl, 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 boy, and I'm in the middle. I'm a double middle. It's a crazy role in the family.
That's a lot. I can't imagine. I basically grew up alone.
I know. You had an only child.
Practically.
And were you an only child?
I was the youngest of 2 onlys. My brother vastly older than me. So we had nothing in common.
Yeah.
So, I basically... It was like being an only child, I would say. But if you read some of the books on your birth order factor, an only has the qualities of an oldest and a youngest thrown in.
Yes, I married an only child. One of the creative writing workshops that I'm doing right now is people have collections of letters, or they have special letters that were mailed. We don't mail letters anymore, but we also don't want to throw them away.
Yeah.
And I think they're like just really fabulous possibilities for creative material. One of the wonderful things, my mother did die somewhat young, and she had dementia and some other problems, and so one of the things that's been really wonderful, and you point to that picture, she's opening a present in that picture.
She looks very young.
To me, this is what this project has been for me, like opening a present, opening that box of letters, because now in working with her letters, I've gotten to spend so much time with her writing these poems. It's almost been this whole other phase. My relationship with her felt unfinished in a way, because when you have dementia and illness, they were rough years at the end. But now I'm having all this wonderful time with her that I never expected to have.
That's amazing. Is that your father with his arms on her shoulder, his hands? That's a picture. That is oh my. Now,
I erased it because it's a book of erasure. I actually obviously have the whole picture, but I'm playing with the ideas. That's her wedding dress and her feet on the front cover. That's his hands from their wedding photo on the back.
I love the way she puts it on the cover. I poached a portion of my mother's love letters to my father, 1953 to 1954. I poached a portion. That is fantastically put. I love it.
Well, I went at them with a consciousness of, well, who do they belong to now, Jan? I mean, she's gone.
Yeah.
They weren't destroyed. It was my mother, her mother-in-law, that kept these letters. And I think one of my aunts gave them to my oldest brother. He put them in the basement. He didn't even know what was in there. But my father's mother kept every letter he ever wrote, and apparently he must have brought all her letters home from Cambridge and left them at his mother's house in Athol.
Yeah.
She kept them. And then now who do they belong to? Who do they belong? And how? She's not here for me to ask permission.
No.
So I say that I poached them.
We are talking with Kelly DuMar, and she is a poet, and she is a workshop facilitator. Kelly, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I would love for anyone to get a hold of me to learn more about my workshops or my books. It's kellydumar@gmail.com. So that's KELLYDUMAR@gmail.com, or simply by my website, kellydumar.com.
This one looks really good. Now, when did you write? Before you
2001.
Before you forget, the wisdom of writing diaries for your children. That's like having your memoir right down, isn't it? Just like
this is the first book I wrote. And it's a nonfiction book for parenting, and it's based on the diaries that I kept for all 3 of my children, starting before they were born.
Yep.
And it is a sort of a creative writing, storytelling book for parents to encourage them and show them the possibilities for writing directly in a diary to your child. Not writing about your child. There's an intimacy that happens when you write directly to your child, even before she's born, before he's born. I did this for all 3 of them. I have stacks of their diaries, and then I wrote a book about it, and I wrote down what they said, I wrote down what they did, I wrote down their adventures. The things I wrote down that they said are some of the things they most highly value. These idea of quotes of things they said when they were 2 4, 6, 8, 10. And so I had a relationship through story with each one of them in these diaries. And I did workshops for parents for some years on really engaging with the storyteller within, because if you can get into your storyteller and not be so focused on the parent, that's when I think you get into your biggest view of these challenges that you face as a parent.
I love the idea of having your diary addressed to the child. I know that before my child was born, I've got to find it. It's a diary that was, every day I was writing about what we're expecting and how you know, everything, and when you were born. I've got to find it before it probably rots in the basement. I don't know, but when you move, sometimes you forget things are down there.
Oh, totally.
Where can people get a copy of the
Well,
book?
this is still in print and still available. Amazon.com is the best way to get before you forget.
Yep. The wisdom of writing diaries for your children. That is awesome. Now, she's also a playwright. And it says, The Adventures of Rocky and Sky, a one-act comedy by Kelly DuMar. What is this all about?
Well, that is a one-act play that is published by Youth Plays. It's licensed by Youth Plays. So this is a play that is performed a lot in high schools, middle schools, even some elementary schools. Yeah. And Youth Plays is the publisher. And this is designed for using in schools. Plays really performable in schools. Very short lines of dialogue, can involve multiple kids, and they're in vignettes, short scenes, so they're not difficult to memorize. Yeah. And there's a lot of creativity, and they're based on the diaries. I took a lot of the material that I put into these short vignettes in this place from the diaries I wrote to my children, and created these fictional characters, Rocky and Sky, and their friends, Ratani and, oh gosh.
Do you have grandchildren?
I have one.
Wait till, have they plays coming up? I mean, are you going to suggest that they do those in school?
Yes, I have a daughter who is a drama therapist, and she actually I did produce it at one point. Yeah. My daughters have both of my daughters have been actors that have been in my plays, and yes, I hope he will.
Yeah. Were you on stage too at any time growing up, like in high school or?
No, but I think if I hadn't been so shy, I would love to have been. And I didn't discover my passion for acting and being dramatic until I went into psychodrama training as a therapeutic modality. And Jen, I think we're all inherently really creative. And someone like you created this show. Mm-hmm. You interview people about their creativity all the time. But I think people have a lot of natural self-doubt about, I'm not creative.
Yeah.
And that is one of my passions, is helping people discover their creative energy and free themselves up to express it, because I think this connects us to our desire to be alive, our reason to live, our hope and happiness. I think it's all in our imaginations.
Yeah. Kelly, you'd make a wonderful coach, life coach. You thought of that?
Well, what I really like coaching people on their writing really specifically.
Yeah, definitely. You've got that ability to immediately come right to the point. I love it. It's excellent.
Thank you. I think one of my clients said to me, Kelly, you make us feel like all of our stories matter. And that was the highest compliment to me, because that's absolutely, I do care. I do think they matter. Yeah. I love to connect with people through storytelling. I love to hear people's stories. Yeah. And I think we need to hear people's stories, and we need to know our own stories are special.
Yeah.
And
definitely. We have something else here too. Where to go? All right. Now, is this your parents' tree?
Yeah, that actually is. That's a collection of poetry that I published before. It was my second collection of poetry, Tree of the Apple, and that is my parents.
In 1980 in Bermuda, right?
Yeah. No, not 1980.
It says...
Could it have been 1980?
Yeah, it says 1980. Well, it says.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, 1980. You got the word apple and then 1980.
Okay.
They are so cute. What a smile on them both. No wonder you got a great smile. And then, so you did this for them. Did they
I wouldn't
read
say
it?
I did it for them, but I did it about, I don't know, they're my poems.
Did they read it? Did they read it? Have they read any of your poems?
My father would have read, he had Alzheimer's, and I think that book contains a lot of the poems I wrote around the time that he had Alzheimer's. So my mother was gone, and Tree of the Apple was my way of emotionally sort of dealing and expressing a lot of the things I was feeling about his Alzheimer's. And so I think that's Tree of the Apple is expressing a lot. So he was deeply supportive of my writing. I'm sure read Before You Forget. He came to all my plays whenever they were produced. He absolutely was a big supporter of my writer. But I think by the time I created Tree of the Apple, he was beyond his ability to read.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of the stories about caring for him and being with him.
And then we have Girl in Tree Bark.
That was my
did that
latest
come out?
collection. Yeah, that is, again, very nature-inspired poems. I'm very involved with nature, and a lot of my poems that are not family-oriented are very close to nature. I live on the Charles River in Sherburne and get to be in the woods there. And so the idea of the river as a habitat, I'm very interested in the plant life and the climate and the weather that one experiences in place.
This, they call it Count Backward, and the mask. Was that this dentist, or did you have other surgery?
No, that was a dentist. That was a tooth being pulled. That
When you were a kid?
yeah.
I had a very bad experience having my tonsils out with that routine.
Yes.
Ooh, that is scary as you know what.
It
that
really.
thing.
Yes, the oxygen mask.
No, this one was ether to knock me out.
Ether. Yes, ether.
Oh.
Exactly. That's what I had
It
too.
smelled horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my parents had it done in that must have been the beginning of modern things, because I'd been in the hospital a year before. Turned out to be tonsillitis. And so she said, well, instead of putting her in the hospital, can we just find an ENT maybe locally who'll do it in their private? They did. So they walked me in. Another little girl named Janet went in. Then I went in, and it was like, oh, God, what have I got? I'm 6 years old. No, 7. I'm like, oh, it's just something I've never forgotten.
No, of course not.
Oh, no.
And those are the great kernels of poems and poetry and other kinds of creative writing.
Did this happen to you? The count backwards with the, yeah. Thank you for writing something, because sometimes I feel all alone with that. But this is so cute. When did you come out with "Girl in the Tree Bark"?
I think that was 2018.
Not that long ago.
No.
Have you got any more books on the docket coming up?
I'm working on a full length of poetry right now. Another full length of book of poetry. Yeah.
We've been talking with Kelly DuMar, and Kelly is a poet and a workshop facilitator. Kelly, again, how can they get a hold of you?
Kelly DuMar at gmail.com. KELLYDUMAR at gmail.com, or my website, kellydumar.com.
There you are. Where would you be? Would you prefer to travel outside of New England further, or stay within if someone wanted to have you come and do a workshop?
I travel anywhere. I travel a lot. I also do a lot of workshops online, but yes, I do travel a lot because I love to present. I love to support writers.
Do you go to libraries mainly, or groups?
I'm involved with a lot of poetry groups. I present at conferences, writing conferences, certainly sometimes at libraries, bookstores.
Okay. Where is the furthest you've gone?
Oh, I've done workshops in France.
Yeah.
I've certainly done them on the other coast, around the country. Canada.
How about in here in New England?
Oh, in New England, I've gone everywhere.
It's fun. There are so many different places. With your new book coming up, and all of your wonderful books here, have you ever heard of it's every December in Rhode Island. It's called the Rhode Island Authors Expo. It is enormous. I know the man who was putting it on. You've heard of it?
No, but it sounds wonderful.
Oh, because you'd stand out, especially because I don't really see there are many that do poetry. And it's just lined with aisles of different authors. I can't possibly meet all of them in one day, but it is the most fun, fantastic thing. I bet you'd love it. Absolutely. Then like I was telling Kelly when she came in, there are so many new indie bookshops coming up, and they'll presentations and workshops. They like things like that too.
Absolutely.
Places like Tatnook up here in Westboro, the Tatnook Bookseller.
I did a Before You Forget workshop with Tatnooks many years ago. Yeah. One of the interesting things, Jan, that has also come out of this Jinx and Heavenly Calling is that my youngest is an actor, and she performs these poems with me. Yeah. So it has turned out to be a very multi-generational project.
So if they would like your copies of your books, would you like me to bring these to the dedicated local authors section of our library? The wonderful place to exhibit them, and people could borrow them, get to know them?
Yes, I would absolutely like to give you a copy to do that.
This would be great. Don't forget, over at the Upton Town Library, which is brand new now, we've moved over to the other place, and you could pick up a copy of Jinx and Heavenly Calling by Kelly DuMar. And
I want to just put a plug in, just say my press, Lily Poetry Review Books, is Massachusetts-based small press, and that's a fabulous poetry publisher. All my books are also available on Amazon, but you could get it from there. But I'm going to give you a copy of that. I'm going to give you a copy of Before You Forget.
Sure.
And maybe even Girl in Tree Bark. I think that's one of my last copies. Tree of the Apple is out of print, but the rest are still in print. So I will give you a copy of all the ones I have that are in print, and you can take them to the library, and I'd be delighted.
That's terrific. It's another great way to get the word out about what you do. Before we close, Kelly, what is the hand just floating in the back? What does that mean?
Well, that's my father's hand from the same wedding picture from which my mother's feet. So, again, it is inspired by the idea of erasure. So, taking something out of context and making it new again.
She's amazing. We'll have to have you back when you have your new book out, right? That would be awesome.
I would love that.
So, we're talking with Kelly.
Such a great talkative interview, Jen. Thank you so much.
Well, it's fun because I love anything creating, and like I've said before, I understand so much when you were at that crossroads. You're like, okay, do I go this way? Do I go that way? And you're strong in both. I can relate to that so much because I'm like, what do I do now? And you said you were shy in school. When I did the plays,
Were you an actor?
Huh?
You were an actor?
Yeah, in school I was in all of the Broadway musical plays in high school.
So you have a voice too.
But I didn't. I didn't go for the leading role because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to remember all the lines. Now, if I had it to do again, it was basically music and songs. There were too many lines the kids had to remember. I would have gone, but I think I felt in competition there was a gal there that always got the lead. So what the heck, So I was in it, but in the background, in the chorus and all this stuff. But you can't change. You can't go back. But boy.
But you had the joy of it. You wanted to express yourself in those ways.
Oh, yeah. I put myself in there. Thank you again for being with us. Say hi to Sherburne for us.
I will. Thank you, Jan.
You're
so
welcome.
great
We'll
to
see
be
you
here.
next time on Be My Guest.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.